This meeting is being recorded.
That like scares me every time. She's like, okay.
All right, so it is June 19th, 6:03 p.m., and timer is started for 20 minutes. So this week we are talking about public leadership and leadership in crisis, which going through the chapters, it seemed like there was quite a bit of good tips, but I think we need to talk about the way that organizations can prepare leaders at all levels to respond in a crisis. So any key thoughts here first?
Let's see. Okay, one thing I noticed was like it said successful leaders fail forward. I thought that was interesting. They were talking about failing forward. It just was talking about like the business hardships, setbacks, personal trauma. So yeah, I just thought that was an interesting. I never thought to like fail forward. Like that was an interesting concept for me to learn. So I liked that. Let's see.
My thing was the pre-crisis leadership. So I think it's easy to kind of like step up and kind of take a leadership role once, it all hits the fan and you have to recover and all of that. But when you see the warning signs, when you see, your team and they're distraught, or you can kind of see like events leading up to it, I think that if you can get it at that stage where you don't have to do like crisis management afterwards, I think that that's probably like the most efficient way to do it, because you're kind of
or like continuous like crisis management throughout like all the time. So like you said, you're like always prepared. So like no matter what comes your way, you can just like fix it or like do some sort of damage control.
I actually looked at the BP video and I highlighted two key components inside the book. I put inside of pre-crisis, I put issue selling and organizational agility. So middle managers must convince top executives to pay attention to issues that they would otherwise ignore. So for the BP situation, the middle managers tried to sell the issue, but because of cost cuts, they were having issues themselves being able to convince senior leadership to pay any type of attention to it. And then organizational agility, I think it was Manzoni that said he wasn't a cement engineer and he had no idea of the issues that were caused because they didn't have that organizational agility where effective crisis leaders have knowledge of all aspects of their business. So like, for example, me as with my team, I may not know precisely how to do their job, but I have a good idea overall how their job gets done. So I'm able to kind of coach and mentor and address issues that they may find. And I think from notes on the BP video, it was definitely some gaps there between middle and senior leadership.
Yeah, you mentioned, I thought of the Tony Howard, he was the CEO, and when they were asking him, he said that he was unaware of the decision-making process, which was funny because that is literally his job, is to watch over the decision-making process. So in the video, they were pretty much just saying how he made a fool out of himself because it's like, dude, that's your job. So
well, sometimes people in those high positions, they're just like given, like it's because they know someone, so they're able to fill that position because it could have been like his buddy from like college or something. So like they really don't know.
Yeah, like sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was just gonna say he didn't take like responsibility for what was happening. So that was one thing. Like he was trying to push it off, like, oh, like I didn't know, but he should have taken responsibility. So, but go ahead.
Right. I was just going to compare because when I was doing the reading with like just crisis and leadership in general, I kept thinking back to, I don't know if you guys saw like the Fire film, the Fire Festival documentary. It just like kept crossing my mind because there was so much that went wrong in terms of leadership. It was just all the way not there. And then the crisis itself made itself into a documentary. So I was thinking of that, but then I was wondering if you guys have ever witnessed or faced any crisis and like seeing the leadership positions in your jobs. Have you guys ever experienced it or gone through it?
Not in my job, but I think a lot about like Donald Trump and like and like Sarah Huckabee Sanders, because she's supposed to be like the spokesperson, but oftentimes I feel like she doesn't mitigate any of the damage. Like she sounds really silly when she speaks. So it's sort of like the BP and the whole situation is like so similar.
So with Sarah, Sarah Sanders, and a couple of times that she's had to respond during crisis, how do you think that her leadership could have prepared her better? Because it seems like, and that's a great example of, we could call it authoritarian leadership or whatever your politics are, but did she have the backing of the leadership, and was she able to manage up and present issues to her leader? Public perception, especially with the comments on articles of saying that she's leaving to go try to become governor, shows that she didn't have a lot of backing from her leadership.
So
I think she just wasn't prepared for the position. I think he has just a lot of people in his cabinet which aren't. They just don't live up to the expectations that a cabinet should have.
I was talking to my manager actually today, and it kind of relates to what you guys are talking about, where like when you have leaders, you talk about like the means and the ends to something. And I think like them specifically, they're so focused on the ends of everything that like they're missing information and they're missing like vital components. So like, what are their means to getting to that? So like when they talk about crisis and all that stuff, whether it's like they immediately go to the solution, but I feel like everyone's like, okay, but how are you going to get there? You know what I mean? Where it's just like, yeah, that's important, but how are you guys actually going to manage this? Like, how are you guys going to use what you know to fix everything as opposed to just focusing on like, this is what we're supposed to be doing?
That's a really good point. And I actually, another thing I related that to, since I do work within like the beauty community in a sense, I don't know if you guys are like into makeup. I know Fred definitely is into it, but recently, I don't know if you guys are familiar with Jaclyn Hill, but she is a YouTuber. And she just launched her first makeup line, and she's had previous collaborations with other brands coming out with makeup brushes or any other products, and something always seems to go wrong. So, you know, everyone was kind of pulling for her and hoping with her own collection, her own launch of her own brand, things would go great, and didn't go very well with her lipsticks. And this was a huge crisis in itself of people getting their orders and they're finding hairs in their lipsticks or molds or any type of like dots and stuff, and they don't know what's going on. And so they're contacting Jaclyn, obviously sending threats, they're contacting the brand, they're like, what's going on? And it hurts Jaclyn's public perception because people are now just expecting failure from her and the launches that she has or the products she comes out with. And then she later had to go on obviously and do like a public statement on her channel discussing that the lipsticks are not old, which a lot of people thought because she wanted to release them years ago and they're just now getting released. So a lot of people are thinking, oh, the factory just hung on to the lipsticks all these years. So now that's why there's mold and stuff. She was talking about the little hairs you're finding are just from the gloves that the factory workers are using. There's like some type of fiber on the gloves, so they switched out the gloves. And she was saying all this stuff, and at the end of the day she's like, I really don't care, I just want all of you guys to be happy and I want you to enjoy your product. So if that means sending a picture, send anything back, I don't care, keep it, I'll send you money. Like, she just wants people to be happy. But at the end of the day, that's like you were saying, just like jumping to the end of like, well, we'll fix it, we'll get your money back, when everyone else is like, how about you put a recall, stop things, stop lipsticks, check to see what's really going on, and then you can continue with your launch. But that was just a crisis in itself, which I thought was interesting to the point you were making.
So how do you think that she was prepared to handle that crisis, or do you think she wasn't, or she didn't have any type of plan?
And that's a interesting question, because you've got people saying, well, she knew the lipsticks were this old and she's just lying, because with every launch she comes out with every collaboration, there's always something wrong.
A disaster,
always a disaster. So people are like, well, she's just in this for the money and she changed and she knew this was going to happen. And then there's the other side, which I kind of feel for, because she is a great personality and, I don't know her personally, so it's hard to say, oh, she's just in it for the money, she knew this was going to happen, versus she didn't know and there was not communication within the labs, within whatever, and this is her brand, and so she kind of didn't know what was going on, and maybe the lipstick she got were fine, and then the ones that were being sent out were not fine. But I think the fact that she unfortunately has gone through so many errors with different brands and stuff, maybe she was kind of prepared for, okay, if something happens, this is what we can do. But something that we can do is just like email the company and we'll fix it. That's kind of what she's just been saying. Just email support and we'll fix it. So maybe she wasn't prepared. I don't know.
Yeah. I feel like it's hard too with like people trying to come up with their own things nowadays, because even companies, organizations, whatever it may be, with the media, because they're so quick to like judge and like make it seem like it's worse than it could be.
Right.
Like I didn't even, like, I'm not like super into her, but like I heard about like I saw even like the pictures through Twitter, like the hairs and the lipstick. So it's super hard because yeah, like this thing, like it gets out there, like one mistake and it's
right.
everywhere.
And it's your whole brand, and now your whole brand is already failing at the initial launch. It's been launched for a week. Exactly. So it's hard to like build back the credibility, because it's like,
because her reputation,
hairs, we're like, no.
Yeah. Her reputation has been shot, and it's going to be like really hard for her to like to fix it.
Yeah. It's related almost like how the Dominoes, did you guys see the Dominoes? Like,
oh God, I'm never going to have Dominoes again.
Wait, exactly. I did not hear this. What happened?
I didn't hear either.
What happened?
No.
I'm scared.
People were
no matter what, I don't eat Dominoes.
Right.
So.
Like I've never ordered from them, but I still want to know.
Yeah.
Me too.
There's a video. There's a link in our module thing about the like two people. They had like records too. They were like picking their nose and putting it in the pizza. Like some guy like went in his pants and like was rubbing it and then put it on the pizza. So it was disgusting, and it totally shot their reputation. Like, I mean, I heard about it back then, but like we banned, like I haven't had Domino's since, like honestly. Not that I ate it before, but after that I was just like, why would I ever want that pizza again?
Right.
So, you know, like your reputation, it's all lasted on there.
So in that case, the Domino's local CEO got on a video and basically said, hey, we realize it. Those people have been arrested and they're being brought up on felony charges, and this is never going to happen again. And he kind of turned around the reputation of Domino's within like the short 2-week window that whole thing started blowing up, even though to this day people still don't eat Domino's. Mm-hmm. But was that a quick and sufficient response? And where did he learn that, you know, as an organization, where did they learn how to make that response that quickly to kind of cut the bleeding off, so to speak? You know, is that something that as leaders we need to build and foster within our organization, or do we just hold everyone accountable, period?
I think it definitely has to be trained, because I feel like when it comes to like post-crisis and all that stuff, so like one of the discussion questions was about Chipotle, so then I started thinking about that, like they've never addressed like the E. coli thing or whatever. So it's just it doesn't matter, I guess, like how much incentive you get people to come back, where it's like if that Domino's guy hadn't turned around immediately and said like, hey, I acknowledge this is happening, like we're trying to figure something out, like I feel like his credibility is there because he at least attempted to be like, I'm fully aware of this, I don't really know how to fix it right away, but you know, like something's coming, as opposed to being like kind of like the Jaclyn Hill, where it's just like, yeah, I don't know, but we'll fix it kind of thing. Yeah. So
heard something bad's happening, stand back.
Yeah. I think we should definitely train people to know how to like immediacy kind of thing. Yeah,
speaking of Chipotle, I still remember the meme that was out on 4chan at the time that basically said you can't spell Chipotle without E. coli.
Oh no.
That's
funny. I've eaten Chipotle one time in my life, and I don't think I'll ever step foot in a Chipotle.
Oh wow! What? Chipotle, like I eat it all the time.
Yeah, I was like,
Me
I had it a few
too.
weeks ago. I'm still alive. I
Me
think
too.
But it definitely did take me a while to like feel okay going back. I was like, okay,
for real.
There haven't been any more.
But honestly, I think that tactic is not like a bad idea to not say anything, like address it at all. Like I don't know if you guys like follow Beyonce, but like when things happens in her life, she doesn't say anything about it, and it just like smooths over. Like I feel like sometimes
it depends on like what it is, because I
yeah,
feel like
yeah. Obviously, like that doesn't affect anyone else but her. But like, yeah, but like sometimes if you don't say anything, it just let it go. It can just like smooth over.
The beehive speaks for her. That's why.
Yes,
she has
that too.
But
Yes.
don't you think as brands and as organizations, they do have somewhat of a responsibility to communicate though?
Yes. And that's why I think it's more situational. So whereas it's just like an artist or something that happens in their personal life, whether it be true or not, and they just not talk about it, that's totally cool because that's their personal life. But if it is something that involves other people's money or involves other people's health, if we're talking about mold and lipsticks, they definitely need to have a responsibility to make a statement, at least one or two.
For sure. Yeah.
So in terms of preparing the leaders for a crisis within an organization, going back to the prompt, what are some of those ways that we think that we can prepare leadership? You know, let's say, for example, there was a reference to McDonald's CEO dying of a heart attack in Florida, and 2 days later they announced a new CEO. What's something that we can do? Like, let's say we're leaders of our company. You know, it's the Leah company, the Leah professional management company. What do we do here to anticipate crises and put a plan in place in order to solve them? You know, what do we do organizationally?
I think like in every organization, there shouldn't just be one person that can do a specific job. I think everyone should be trained to handle situations so that in that situation, there's always someone who can replace them. Secondly, I feel like, that's it. Like, so like once you have someone to do those positions, then you're able to handle anything because you're not worried about, oh my God, who can do this now?
Luisa, would you add to it?
For my company, we actually have training sessions every like 3 to 4 weeks. So each time they, it's called like third place. So every time they address a certain situation that has like the potential to occur, not necessarily bad, but they're just saying like, this is who we are. This is the organizational culture that we have, and this is what we would hope would happen if this happened, you know, in any given situation. So it's like you kind of, every couple of weeks, they put it back into your mind, like, hey, am I actively thinking about what's going to happen if this happens or if this occurs? So I think they're like proactively getting people thinking about how am I going to respond or how am I going to react to anything that could happen while I'm here. So I think that's a good way to do it because you're not like worried about it, but you're actively thinking about it.
Yeah, action plans, identifying the risks. I used to be a business resiliency officer back in my days at Wells Fargo as part of my job role. And we had books and books of processes, procedures. We even had a secondary site. We always planned in case the facility got hit with a tactical nuke. And so one of the pieces of plan was we maintain a dark site 100 miles away from the area where we had plans for buses, plans for moving people, plans to feed people, plans to house people, so that we could keep operations going in the case of something that was that big of a crisis. So, yeah, definitely plans, definitely training. It's Starbucks, right, Luisa?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're known for their resiliency planning.
Yeah, they do. Which I like the way they do it because like it doesn't feel tedious. They do it through like speakers. They do through TED Talks. They do it the trickle down where you hear it from the people themselves and you hear it from like motivational speakers and all of that. So it's kind of fun and it doesn't feel like you're like, okay, here we go again.
Yeah, it's like interactive. It's like interactive education, but like you like don't feel like you're in a boring classroom.
Right.
So as always, we're coming up on time. We're about 40 seconds out from the end of this. Is there anything else that we want to jump in and add to this before we turn off the recording? All right. Well, in that case, I'm going to turn it off, and then we'll just talk about next steps on the framework right after I hit pause here.
Okay.